Hey, so thank you for having some interest in A Place to Talk. If I would, I'd like to direct you to aplacetotalk.net. I want you to know who we are, what we're doing. We want to be a generous, affirming community of serious searchers, skeptics, thinkers, talkers, doubters, and doers in a relentless pursuit of love. You say, Josh, what do you mean by love? Well, we have a Christian history, a Christian base, a love for Jesus, but we're almost embarrassed by I say we. Let me speak for myself. I'm almost embarrassed by the word Christian these days because it's come to mean things that are yuck, you know what I mean? So anyway, long story short, I want you to read about who we are. If you ask, what do we believe? We're learning to answer that with a symbol. And it's this circle here in the middle with lots of open doors. We want to continuously you see the arrows that show we're continuously moving. We want to be continuously progressing and growing. But we want to keep the doors to always remind us that they're always open doors. And we want to make our circle bigger to include you, to include anyone. But we're a tiny, tiny little group. I mean, Sunday mornings, we have just a handful of people that gather and we chat. We have these conversations. So this Sunday, we're going to be having a conversation about sincere versus hypocrites prayer. And just to be honest with you, we don't claim to know what is right and what's wrong, but we want to discuss it. So let's talk about Matthew 6. We're in a series called the Red Letter Conversations where I ask questions every week and we just have a conversation about what Jesus's words mean. Red letter meaning we're just looking at Jesus's words. Here are some of Jesus's words, and the letters that are marked as red here, they don't mean anything. I think this entire text is Jesus's words, so it should all be red. But anyway, it's Matthew 6, 5 through 8. When you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Then jump over to the other part. It says, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then when your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they'll be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. So historically, there's been different positions taken on this. The early church, I got an itch. The early church fathers argued that Jesus does not forbid public prayer, but prayer done for applause. Radical reformers got to the point they were just like, just don't pray in public ever. And mainstream Christianity today, well, I don't know, the most American mainstream Christianity today seems to be very, very, very much in the performative business. And so, I've got a personal embarrassment towards that, but they don't condemn communal prayer or public prayer at all. They certainly would probably say that they condemn performative prayer, but yet seems like it happens a lot. I would say this would be considered to be prayer that's done to be seen by others. I mean, you've literally got it. Well, I mean, here in this image, you do see the back of heads, but in this image here, it's completely for the camera. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no other meaning, but in these prayers, both of these prayers, it seems to be that it's certainly about being seen by others. I don't know. Maybe I'm judging here. I wonder how often. I wonder if we should maybe try to get performative religion certainly out of politics, right? Did Jesus ever pray publicly? Well, in John 11:41, he looks up to the Father and says, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. That is certain. I mean, for Jesus to have been heard praying, he had to have been in front of somebody. Then there's a time where he takes his Peter, James, and John up on a mountain and he prays certainly in front of them. So it's not like Jesus never was seen by anyone praying. Here's another question. If God already knows why we pray, if God already knows everything, why do we pray? The classical Christian response is prayer does not inform God. Prayer forms the person. It changes us. Thomas Aquinas says prayer is part of God's ordained means of answering. In other words, God chooses prayer. What does that mean? Reformation thought, Calvin emphasized prayer aligns the believer's will with God's will. I'm not a big fan of Calvin. You know that I'm disgusted by what he did with, having people burn at the stake. Anyway, not a big fan of Calvin. Monastic interpretations of prayer talks about how this go into your room, this symbolic go into your room and pray thing, it's kind of like the room of the heart. And I think, you think, well, what does it mean by the heart? It's not talking about that pumping organ. You might say in your mind, but that's not talking about your brain. It's this collective, internal, private part of us, our conscious, our however you want to define that. Here are the questions I want us to discuss this coming Sunday at A Place to Talk. What do you think Jesus was actually encouraging us to avoid in this text? Was he actually encouraging us to avoid public prayer or performative prayer? Is it possible for you to keep performance 100% out of your public prayer? Like for me, anytime I'm called on to pray, I mean, heck, even in front of before a basketball game at the YMCA, I might, the home team prays. And of course, we always think about what other people are going to hear when we pray. I never pray that we win. I always pray, that people don't get hurt and that we're safe and everybody has great attitudes. But in truth, that's not the thing. I mean, I want us to not get hurt. But if I were not at all performing, I'd say, Jesus, I pray that we'd mop the floor with these enemies. I mean, what is it possible to keep, I pray at funerals and I pray at weddings and I pray at, there's times even at family gatherings, you're called on to pray. Can you keep it 100% non-performative? I don't think I can, or I don't think I have. People I love and respect, like Brian Zahn, teach us to use repetitive prayer to help form us as believers. Pray these things every single day because it changes us. It forms us. Is that what we should be doing, or is that what Jesus was telling us not to do here? I want us to discuss that. How does prayer form us? How does repeating prayers form us? I wonder, I'm just thinking right now out loud, I wonder if instead of actually just reading and repeating those prayers exactly, I wonder if we should take those prayers and let them be a guide to our prayer. Like, should we read the prayer and pray the principles in our own words? Because that I remember when I was a kid and Mom was teaching me to read and we were reading the Bible together, Mom would say, I'd have to memorize the verse. I couldn't memorize it unless I learned what it meant and what the idea was. Then it stuck in your mind so much better. I wonder if that's the way we should treat these repetitive prayers. We should read them and try to understand them and pray them in our own words because it might be more impactful. I don't know. These are things we're going to talk about Sunday. I think it'll be March 15th at A Place to Talk. God already knows what we need before we ask. Do you think prayer is still important, or has your prayer life slipped as a result of your theological journey or even growth? For me, it has. There was a time in my life where I prayed because I was taught to. There was a time in my life I prayed because I, felt like it would change my life. And then there was a time in my life where I prayed out of habit. And there was a time in my life where honestly, there's a time in my life where I've just my prayer life has slipped because I feel like, God knows everything. I'm talking to God constantly. Do I really need to take time and pray? I was actually, yesterday, I was talking to some friends, and a friend said, I prayed about this. And I thought, you really did. I thought that's interesting. And she felt an impact from this prayer. And I thought that was pretty cool. And it makes me wonder, do I pray like I should enough? What are some modern examples of performative religion that might resemble what Jesus calls hypocrisy here? Or should we just ban all religion or religious people from public office? Yeah, the reason I kind of, in the middle of my sentence as I was writing that, as the middle of my question, I just switched gears, because in my mind, performative religion is all of that political crap, that religion that's tied to politics. I think it's sick. It's gag worthy. When you pray, do you feel more connected to God through structured prayers and through spontaneous conversation? And why? Do you ever feel or find or feel connected to God through prayer? And that's it. That's our last question for Sunday, March the 15th. Let's talk about these things together. I look forward to seeing you then.